On February 25, 1870, Hiram Revels becomes the first African American in the United States Congress. But who was Hiram Revels? And what did he accomplish as a U.S. Senator? Also, why did he serve for only 1 year? Hiram Rhodes Revels was born free in North Carolina in 1827. His ancestors had been free since before the American Revolution. An ordained minister, he traveled extensively, preaching in several states around the country. During the American Civil War, which began in 1861, Revels helped organize and recruit 2 black Union regiments in Maryland and Missouri. He served as an Army chaplain and participated in the pivotal Battle of Vicksburg in Mississippi. Revels remained in Mississippi after the war and became involved in Reconstruction-era politics. The 1867 Reconstruction Acts divided the South into 5 military districts and granted the right to vote to all male citizens. By 1870, all former Confederate states had been readmitted to the Union, and most state legislatures were controlled by Republicans, thanks in large part to black voters. Remember that until the 17th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified in 1913, it wasn't the people who voted in U.S. senators. They were chosen instead by state legislatures. Less than 5 years after the end of the Civil War, the Mississippi legislature elected Hiram Revels to fill the final year of a U.S. Senate seat once held by Confederate President Jefferson Davis, but left vacant since he resigned from the Senate after Mississippi seceded in 1861. This political cartoon effectively notes the irony of Davis's former seat being filled by a black man. When Revels arrived in Washington, D.C. to be sworn in, Southern Democrats unsurprisingly opposed seating him. 2 days of heated debate followed. The primary arguments against seating him centered around the 1857 Supreme Court decision in the Dred Scott case, which stated that blacks were not U.S. citizens. Opponents claimed that Revels had only become a citizen with the 14th Amendment in 1868. Thus, they argued, Revels had only been a U.S. citizen for 2 years and did not meet the constitutional requirement that a person be a citizen for at least 9 years to be eligible for the Senate. Proponents countered by noting that Revels had voted in Ohio before the Civil War. This pre-1861 voting record, they argued, confirmed that his citizenship went back more than the required 9 years. His supporters also pointed out that since Revels was of mixed African and European ancestry, the Dred Scott decision did not apply to him anyway. Additionally, Revels' supporters claimed that the Civil War had, in fact, overturned the Dred Scott decision. In making this argument, one senator mocked those opposing Revels as still trying to fight the last battle of the Civil War. After a 48-8 vote in his favor along party lines, Revels was sworn in on February 25th, becoming the first of 16 black men to serve in Congress during the Reconstruction period that followed the Civil War. Revels served in the Senate for just 1 year, finishing the final year of the vacancy. Not surprisingly, he used his position to fight for equality. Also not surprisingly, results were mixed. An effort years ahead of his time to integrate schools failed, but he succeeded in advocating for black mechanics who faced discriminatory hiring practices at the Washington Navy Yard, helping to overturn racial bans that had prevented them from working there. Revels chose not to seek re-election to the Senate and instead returned to Mississippi to become the first president of what is now Alcorn State University. He also briefly served as the state of Mississippi's Secretary of State. Hiram Rhodes Revels died in Aberdeen, Mississippi in 1901 at age 73. During Reconstruction, in addition to the aforementioned 16 members of Congress, more than 600 black men served in state legislatures and more than 1,000 more in local offices. After Reconstruction ended in 1877, Jim Crow began to take over in the South. In 1966, 95 years after Revels, Edward Brooke became the first black U.S. senator elected by popular vote. In fact, after George Henry White's election from North Carolina in 1898, it wasn't until 1972 that former Confederate states again elected African Americans to Congress. Here are other events that happened today in history. In 1862, Congress authorizes the use of paper money for the first time in U.S. history. In 1943, legendary Beatles guitarist George Harrison is born in Liverpool, England. In 1948, a Soviet-backed communist government seizes power in Czechoslovakia in a coup d'etat. Also in 1948, Martin Luther King Jr. is ordained a Baptist minister at age 19. In 1964, 22-year-old Muhammad Ali, then known as Cassius Clay, knocks out champ Sonny Liston. In 1986, in the face of mass demonstration, Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos flees his country. In 2022, President Joe Biden nominates Ketanji Brown Jackson to the U.S. Supreme Court. And now it's time for our Today in History quiz. Which U.S. president established Grand Canyon National Park? Theodore Roosevelt, William Howard Taft, Woodrow Wilson, or Warren G. Harding? Liked learning about Hiram Revels? Then you'll love this one about Rosa Parks and the Montgomery bus boycott. Tap the screen to keep the story going on Today in History.